All right, guys, thanks for jumping on board. As other people come in, I will jump in and out to let them inside of the program. Glad to have you on board. I'm Wayne Sutton, founder and creator of Neuro Persuasion and your persuasion coach. Today, we're going to go, if you missed any of our past, you can check it out on the YouTube channel, because in the last few weeks, we have covered different levels of influence, suggestibility, and so forth. Feel free to type any questions inside of the chat. I'll try to answer those. We'll definitely answer them at the end of the call. To respect everybody's time. We're here to learn how to persuade ourselves, persuade others, be the best we can be. So I am really in the attempt to take this 1 hour meeting down to 30 minutes, and we're going to do the best that we can with that. So we will have replays inside of the Neuro Persuasion Facebook group, and for our private clients, we'll take any of this information will be in your portal. Now, let's jump into Neuro Persuasion really quick. And I want to share with you a little bit about what it is and how it affects you. Neuro Persuasion is literally taking how the mind works. I believe that we were created with an exceptional mind, and we can do a lot of things. And inside of that, we need to learn how to influence ourselves first. You will hear me talk a lot about persuading other people's influence and sales strategies. But it all starts with you, because if you can, when you can influence yourself, you can influence others, and that's when we can impact the world. That's what we're looking to do. We're looking to make changes in the world. And so I want to say, if this is your first time with us, welcome aboard. You'll have fun. If you're one of the regulars, thanks for jumping on again as well. Now, in the past, let me jump back just a few slides. We talked about 6 factors of suggestibility. This was from last week, a week before class. How suggestion trickles down, and everything that we do, from everything that we've been taught and everything that we see, we're being programmed, we are being molded, and we have the ability to use that for good. We have the ability to help change lives. So today I want to talk about influencing others, not ourselves, but how to influence others. We're going to talk about rewarded behavior is likely to be repeated. How many of you have a fluffy little dog, maybe a fluffy big dog? How many of you have an animal? And feel free, guys, to turn on, get on your clothes if you need to, turn on your cameras. I want to see people. If you can, if you can't, that's cool too. But I love to communicate with people when we do these. But rewarded behavior is likely to be repeated. Even a small reward, a small gesture, such as a smile, a head nod, thank you, may be enough to set up what we call a reward anchor. We want to reward people for the little things they do. Number one, we live in a world where most people don't. We live in a world where most people take people for granted. We want to be that one person that says, thank you. We appreciate that. That's a great job. If you study someone, if you really study even how hypnosis works, when someone is placing someone in trance or guiding somebody into a trance state, they use a lot of that. Yes, that's right. There you go. And they use a lot of that positive reward, because the reward behavior is likely to be repeated. So I'll tell a quick story. We have about a 1.5-year-old fluffy dog is what I call her. She's a Shih Tzu Bichon mix, but she's a fluffy dog. And okay, she can sit and she can do basic commands, but I thought, hey, I would love for her to shake hands. So it took, okay, maybe I should have taught her this as a puppy, but it didn't take long with potato chips, her hands up every time. But now, as soon as she hears food, she drops and holds her paw up. She's like, okay, I got this. That behavior is anchored in. If I do this, I get food. We want to think that we're so much greater than that. But really, we do the same things. We do things for reward. People that you're kind to influence, they'll do things for reward. Whatever type of business you're in. This is really important to know. If you're doing face-to-face, if you're doing, maybe you're setting up webinars, maybe you're doing phone sessions, whatever, how you are influencing other people is going to be very important. Helen, I'm going to pick on you real quick. I see your picture there. It says, I am joyful, with a big smile. I love that. It just literally looking at you. I can't even see you. I'm looking at your picture on Zoom. But that smile, Oliver, great smile there. I just see that smile, and it connects with those mirror neurons, and it brings people into a good state. So let's talk about how to influence people by using small areas of suggestion. All right. Now, research, this is really cool research. It's older research, but people are saying they've been for thousands of years. Upwards of 50% of people will follow suggestions to be polite. To be polite. So start small. Start small with people. Helen, can I ask, if you are available, what kind of business or what do you do, if you don't mind sharing with us? Or Maury or Oliver, anybody want to open up their mic and share with us? What kind of business are you in? What do you sell? Okay, can't hear you, so we're just going to continue on. Feel free to jump in any time, though. All right, so I want to talk about the again. If you're doing one-on-one sales, if you're doing webinar sales, you're persuading people through negotiation, whatever it may be. You can prime the situation. If most people will comply, upwards of 50% will comply just to be polite, then you can prime the situation. You are literally giving that person an identity, maybe even when you first met them. Me and my wife were just in this office having this discussion. I said, when you first meet someone, we want to find something that, we want to build rapport. We want to find some commonality. It's just human nature. But if you can find an area in their life, that you can prime, and what I mean by that is reward their behavior. If I see somebody do anything polite, if they show up on time, I want to tell them, hey, listen, I appreciate, Wendy, I really appreciate you showing up on time for this call. It's really nice to see people to take, and you can commend her on taking their business serious. I really want to say thanks for the nice email that you sent, confirmation email. It's really nice to work with people that are polite today. Something simple. It's not just a accolade, good job, Wendy. It literally is giving them that identity. You want to help people have that identity, because we have different identities throughout the day. When I'm talking with you here, I have one identity, well, part of my identity, a fraction. When I'm negotiating a real estate deal, I may jump into another identity. I don't mean that to sound weird, but we all do. We have different social places and different ways we act in different social situations. So if I'm going to ask somebody to comply and work with me, I'm going to prime them as much as I can by saying, hey, thanks for jumping on board. You came on board early. Great job. I see you're serious about doing this. And when possible, share with them how polite they are, because what it does is literally sets up an identity frame of who they are. We'll get into this in detail. Those who are doing these sales calls, I really want to see your script. I want to hear your calls. We'll do some call reviews, and we'll help recognize where you could frame it maybe in the very beginning to get them to a positive state. The reason we want to do this is influencing through imagination. The mind will lead the body always. The mind will lead the body always. In fact, let me jump back here. I think I jumped out. Okay. If we can get somebody thinking one way, we can get them to move in the same direction. So we're going to craft suggestions that activate language comprehension, emotional associations. I'm going to come back to this. Definitely going to take a picture of this, great, but I'm going to come back to this because I want to jump ahead first. I got my slides out of order. I want to give you the secret code of persuasion. This is there's 1,000 different methodologies behind persuasion. This is really the simplest and most powerful way. And people are suggested or guided in this. Number one is attention. We talked about this in a class a couple of weeks ago. If you cannot get their attention, you can't grab a rapport. You cannot gain rapport. Now, attention could be subtle. You subtly move in. You're there on their social media feed. You're there in the same environment, whatever, very subtle. Or it could be a pattern interrupt. How many of you have been scrolling Facebook, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, and there's something, boom, it stops you. That's a pattern interrupt. It can be something outrageous. It can be something unique. It can be something that it changes the pattern or the state of mind that you're in. It gains attention. Now, we can really craft that, but for the sake of this call, I just want to keep that really short. Now, once I've got your attention, Wendy, I've got to get your focus. I want to have you focused in on me. So I need to, and we use this through language, use this through imagery, but how do we guide their thoughts to a central state or a focal point? Now, once we have that, we can move into imagination. If I don't have your attention, I don't have your focus, I can't get you to imagine anything. But if I can guide your imagination, aware that some people will resist massive requests, so we're going to come in and we're going to guide with stories and with metaphors. When we guide with stories and metaphors, it's extremely powerful. We're going to cover that in detail. What stories to tell? How short or long should your stories be? And how to use the story to get them involved. And we'll cover that over the next few weeks. Finally, once you've got that imagination going, you've got the chemicals. We're going to talk about chemical release in the brain through different stories. Then we can link that to you. You get into the emotions. If you get their attention, you get them to focus, you get their imagination going, you can get their emotions going. And when you have the emotions guided in the right way, then you can link that to you, your service, your product. So we're going to talk today, though, about imagination and why we want to use that. Craft suggestions that activate language comprehension. Understand this. Emotional associations and, of course, visual aspects. That means every time we talk, every time we do a presentation, every time we're meeting with someone, we need to make sure that our suggestions, our stories, our metaphors, okay, they can connect with in language. That's why we use a lot of metaphors. There's an emotional attachment to it, and then anything visually that we need as well. This is exactly how people fall into trance, whether it be hypnosis, timeline therapy, etc. It's the exact same pattern, that we're not placing them in trance, we're just helping them make better decisions. So think about this. How many of you have been involved in a great TV show, a great movie? You're literally entranced. It doesn't matter what's going around you, you're into the movie. I can tell when my wife is getting excited because she sits up. For laying in bed watching TV. She sits up, and then she lays back down, and then she sits back up, and then she's screaming at the person in the TV. They're not real. They're actors. They have cameras all around them. And what's really amazing is when you see her tears coming down her face. Through storytelling, they have hit language. Number one, she understands what they're saying. She comprehends. She's hit emotions. She sees the visuals, and they have guided her. Now, do we have to tell a story that brings people to tears every time? Absolutely not. But when you guide the imagination, you're guided every day through social media, television, through others. So we want to gain rapport, capture attention, and as they begin to focus, lead with imagination guidance. Almost everybody that I coach and counsel in almost every sales presentation, I use the power of storytelling. I'd say 99% of the time. And really using it in a way that helps give them and this is the important part, guys, gives them the permission and the identity of someone who can make a change. The permission and identity of someone who can make a change. That's going to be real important because people get on sales calls all the time. People work with coaches all the time. People, whatever it may be, all the time, but they don't make decisions. How do you get somebody to make a decision? Uses power of storytelling. So most of humanity is a victim of their own imagination. Your imagination is always active and can lead you to greatness or passive despair. Think about, if you see the 4 words I have there, they all have, they're just words. But through imagination, people can find themselves aroused sexually. They can find themselves ready to kill somebody and murder. They can find themselves laughing. They can find themselves wanting to commit suicide. Your mind and the mind of everyone else is very powerfully guided through imagination. That's why people that practice mindfulness, meditation, prayer, a lot of times can get into a different state. but they can see things differently, or they're taking control of the imagination. I have 4 young daughters at home. I love to see their imagination. I love to hear them in there playing Barbie dolls and playing school, and their imagination is just wide open. We lose that as we become adults, but we can capture that again. We can capture it in our own life, but we can definitely lead it and help other people as well. So let me ask you, Wendy, I'm gonna pick on you. Share with us what you had for breakfast yesterday.
Oh my goodness. I usually have the same thing like every day, but yesterday I feel like I didn't have breakfast.
No breakfast, okay. The day before.
I have spinach, a poached egg, and steel cut oats and strawberries. Awesome. And then I have a protein shake after my workout.
Okay, awesome. Now, what are you going to have for dinner this evening?
I'm probably going to have chicken and corn on the cob.
Chicken, corn on the cob, okay. Now, I want all of you that are listening to just go back to breakfast. She had to think. You saw her look up. She had to. What was she doing? You can say, well, she was accessing her memories. Sure. She had to access her memories, and she had to picture the spinach and the poached egg, and neither one of those sound really attractive for breakfast, but good for you. And she had to. The protein shake sounded good, but she had to picture and give us an image. Every one of you hearing that, including me, could see it. We think in pictures. I could see spinach. I could see a poached egg. I could see that. I could see a strawberry protein shake. That's what I like. I don't know what kind you had, but that's what I saw. So the point is, then I said, what about dinner? Probably chicken and whatever else you said. What was that? Was that imagination? If you go back, even think about memories, guys. Think about the memory of somebody. They're sitting before you and they're ready to do a deal with you. They're ready to buy from you. They're ready to sign up with you, whatever your business is. And they're going to go back and access a memory of when they had a similar situation. Was it good or bad? When you think ahead in the future for dinner, you think of how it's going to look. How is this chicken going to taste? How is it going to be? And what I said earlier here, we're a victim of our own imagination is extremely powerful. Last week, I took my wife to Nashville. It was our anniversary, and I also had some work to do. So we took to Nashville, and like 2 days in, she said, I'm having fun, but this isn't how I imagined it. I said, well, how did you imagine it? And she painted a picture for me. I said, okay, then let's make the rest of the trip that way. And it was mind-blowing because we imagine how things are going to be. We imagine how something's going to work. So here's my point. Our memories, our thoughts about now, the future, that should say mere hallucinations, not more hallucinations, but they're just mere hallucinations. To a small or large degree, that's all it is. I have to go back in my mind and paint a picture. Now, when you really, gets a little scary. Every time that you go back and recall a memory and you share it with someone, the brain literally changes the way you see the memory. I had a discussion this morning. I said, I remember the last time I saw my mother. I was 7 years old. And she was in a hospital. She was dying. I didn't know. I'm 7 years old. But I remembered looking out the window. I'm like, wow, we're way up on the 8th floor. I'm looking out at Duke Hospital. We're looking over the city. And I'm there with my family. And I remember hugging Mom bye. And I was so excited. Love my mom. I was Mama's boy. But I was so excited because when we were leaving, I was going to get a Hawaiian punch. And I was like, yes, sugar in a can, So, but do you know that even though real as it was, I have to go in my mind and recreate the image share it with my wife. And every time you tell a story like that, every time you go back and recall a memory, the brain will change parts to match what you just said. A little weird. The point is, the same thing happens when somebody's bought something in the past. And you know we love to romanticize the past. That's just a reality. Everything's nostalgia. We romanticize the past. We go into someone and go, oh, I remember this salt and pepper shaker from when I was at grandmom's house, Oh, I remember this, and we romanticize it. But fear the future many times. The clients that you're going to suggest, that you're going to work with, have already made these images in their mind. They have belief systems. We can take that and help them make great decisions by the power of storytelling, by the power of questions. And understand whatever they tell you is just a mere hallucination of the way they see it. Back to my wife, I'm having a great time, but this isn't how I saw it happening. Okay, great. So we can either redesign how you saw it so you can find yourself happy. I thought that was the easiest. Or how did you see it happening? How did you see our trip to Nashville? And when she told me, this is what I saw, let's make it a reality. So our memories, our thoughts are mere hallucinations. So one of the easiest ways to get somebody to follow you in your imagination stories and help them make great stories is to invite them. Just invite them. Hey, Wendy, I invite you to think back to a time. Or Wendy, I'd love to share a story with you. Wendy, this reminds me of a time when. This reminds me of a time when is a very simple way of saying, oh, okay, I'm about to hear a story. We're pre-wired to hear stories. I'm about to hear a story. Resistance goes down. And most people place themselves in that story. I don't know if we have any country music fans on here or not. My wife is a massive country music fan, so we're in Nashville. She's excited. We're at the Grand Ole Opry, and this gentleman comes out named Chris Jansen. I'd heard his name, but I didn't know any of his songs. And Chris is like one little happy dude. He just smiles and sings, and it's like the Joe Osteen of country music or something. And then he slows down and he tells a story about a friend of his and their mom dying. And he told the story about why he wrote the song. And then he sings the song. I didn't know who Chris Jansen was 30 minutes ago. I don't know his friend. I don't know his friend's mom. But I put myself back into that picture with my mom. The story took me back to losing my mom. The song took me back. And I'm sitting here, tears in my eyes, going, this is crazy. This is what I teach. And I'm falling victim to it. But victim in a good way, if that makes sense. So he invited me into his story by saying, last week or whenever it was, this happened, and he just started telling a story. And this is my point. When you're in rapport with somebody, you can activate their imagination through storytelling by simply beginning to tell a story. People are pre-wired to accept and enjoy stories when they're executed properly. It lowers resistance and allows indirect suggestions to be given. Now, when we get into more of binds, double binds, language presuppositions, I'll share with you how you can embed these commands, I guess you would say, inside of your language. But for now, just understand it lowers resistance, keeps them in a good state of mind. I want you to read this. This is so powerful. When I saw this, there's a couple things in here I'm going to share with you. The science of storytelling. Entrepreneur and storyteller Leo Widrich said there's not only language process parts of our brain. When we hear a story, the language processing parts are activated, but any other area in our brain we would use when experiencing the events of the story are too. Extremely powerful. That's why I felt the pain of my mom dying when I heard this silly song by this country singer I never heard of. So details like the client was excited as if he'd won the lottery engages their sensory cortex. Now, this is literally all they got to do is tell the story about it. He was excited as if he'd won the lottery. How many of you have imagined if I won the lottery? I mean, I've spent it out to the dollar what I would do with that $150 million. We all have. So when you hear the past client, hey, glad to have you on board with this, Wendy. He really reminded me of a client that just signed up in Pennsylvania. In fact, we got her this result, blah, blah, blah. She said, I'm excited as if I've won the lottery. You hear that story, the part of your brain that has a positive expectation of when the lottery fires up while we're having a conversation. Action words like drive this project home engage the motor cortex. So we can see in storytelling different parts of the brain light up. Now, as we go through neuropersuasion, I'm going to teach you different words, not drive this project home, but different words to embed in your stories that will also elicit not only that part of the brain, but also elicit the desired action that you want. So all this leads to a more connected and richer experience of the message. In short, the more a speaker conveys information in story form, the closer the listener's experience and understanding will be to what the speaker actually intended. You can give facts and data, you can give stories. Learn to tell stories in a good way. All right. So let's go back here and ask, can you share parts of your story? Share stories of your current or past clients and allow the story to activate different parts of the brain. The leading of the mind will place the prospect in a state most likely to comply with your request. Okay. So a number of years ago, I was selling a coaching package. Now, I was one of the coaches in this organization, but I also got inside on phone calls, Zoom calls, and we sold this. And I had to convince them to work with this name, this coach. One of the ways I did that was storytelling. And what I did was tell them, hey, I chose to work with this name. Now, I chose to work with them in a different light. They were paying for coaching. I was getting paid to coach. But still, I chose to work with them. But instead of saying, well, I chose to work with this person because of this and this and this, I told a story. And I did it like this. I said, I remember the first time I heard, I'm going to make up a name. I'm not with the real name. Wendy. We'll go with Wendy. I remember the first time, not really a made up name, but it works. I remember the first time I heard about Wendy. I was sitting at my desk on my computer and it came across whatever social media platform I was on. I think it was Facebook. And have you ever just saw something and it caught your attention? Just like everything else seemed to fade away, but right there. And I had to focus on that. And I watched it and I focused in on that. And I remember walking downstairs and going to my wife and said, hey, remember how I said I would never work for somebody else again? How I'd never do that? And we always say things we'll never do again, right? Well, I'm going to work with Wendy. And she said to me, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You have your own business, you have this, da, da, da. Why would you? And I'm giving you a short version of the story here, guys. And I said, but have you ever met somebody? But let me ask you, Helen, have you ever just met somebody and you just knew instantly, you couldn't put your finger on it, but you knew this person is for me. This person is the next right step in my life. And I waited for Helen to say, yeah. I said, yeah. With me, with Wendy, that's how I felt. And let me share with you what it's done for me. Now, let me break that down. And again, this was kind of rough, off the cuff. What I did there was told a story of how I met this person, how everything else seemed to fade away. how I made a decision on my own. I didn't say this, but I made a decision on my own. I didn't have to talk to my spouse. How many of you ever had that? Let me talk to my spouse objection. I didn't have to talk to my spouse. I went and told my spouse. And she didn't understand. Why? Because your prospects are like, oh, if I buy this product, what if my spouse doesn't understand? She didn't understand. And I'm telling all of this in the story. But then you ever met that one person and you just knew. You couldn't put your finger on it, but you just knew this was the right person. When they hear that, they're going, yes, I have. We've all had those intuitions, that gut feeling. That this is the right person for me. And then I immediately mentioned Wendy's name, my name. And let me show you how it works. Now, inside of our private coaching, we'll tear that down even deeper and show some of the presuppositions and things that we did. But I had people at the end of the call go, you know, Wayne, I don't know why, but I need to do this. I can't place my finger on it either, but I know I need to do this. And these were $24,000 coaching packages. We hadn't talked about the details. We didn't get hung up into the logistics. What we did was drive the part of the brain to make them go, yes, this sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna finish up with this. I want you to really look at this. This is a very, very important. Chemicals such as cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin are released in the brain when we're told a story. That's why you get that warm, fuzzy feeling. You get nervous, you cry, you're aroused, whatever it is because of these chemicals. If we're trying to make a point stick, cortisol assists in that. Cortisol, even though it's not really healthy for our body, we don't need massive amounts of cortisol, but cortisol in the right dose, I guess you would say, in the right time of the story, helps create memories. Dopamine, we all like those dopamine hits when we're excited, things are good. They keep us engaged. Oxytocin. If you could use your language in a way that would release oxytocin, literally just telling a story, and you knew when to tell the story and what to say, where that person listening would release oxytocin and they would naturally find themselves in a place of deep relationship with you, feeling comfortable with you. That's the power of storytelling, using linguistic and using some visual anchors. We'll get into that. So I just want to let you know, storytelling is not just storytelling. It's literally unscrewing the brain, playing with some chemicals, putting it back in, and making things work for their benefit. Now, there's dopamine, there is oxytocin, there's cortisol, there's serotonin, there's different endorphins that we can release. Inside of Neuropersuasion for our private coaching clients, we're going to cover each one of those and how to release them. And very important, because you may get in a conversation with someone and you recognize they're addicted to one of these chemicals. That's just how they move. And you can help somebody break free of that addiction. We'll get into that later, though. So, are you ready for more? Here's my question for those watching live and those who are watching the replay of this. Here's my 30-second sales pitch. Are you ready? If you want to learn how to do all of this and really change people's lives, then we have two options. We have hybrid group and private sessions, and we have the inner circle. Inner circle, I have literally one spot left, and that's it. Inner circle worked with me for 1 year. We go through influencing yourself, influencing others, and creating impact in the world. The hybrid group and private we can discuss. So go to my website, yourpersuasioncoach.com, or text me. I do answer the phone. So text me, and I will be able to give you more information on that. So I want to stop the recording for the people that are watching this for free, and then we're going to open up any questions